card, I can't stop thinking. Brother in the Illuminati, brother not in the Illuminati. Brother in the Illuminati commits. Like, how many of these things have to happen in front of the public? Of course they're going to attack, I'll be sure. Of course they're going to attack me. Of course they're going to attack anybody who's interested in the truth. Of course they're going to come at us really hard for that first 72 hours and make sure we stop posting or at least get us flagged from being able to go live so nobody thinks about the details of the fact that we just watched Angie Stone get moved around in real time.
Only knew how much money they have taken from me, how much they have stolen from me. I should have been able to retire 20 years ago with the money I've made. But there are key people that have been driving the ships. And what they've been doing is improperly representing me, improperly stealing from me, taking things in their own hand, changing and switching lanes because they knew I didn't know that part. And even though they were taking care of themselves, they thought very little of taking care of me. One way or the other, Universal Music, you're going to have to give up my coins. So what I'm doing now is whatever is necessary to make sure they pay me for the legacy of my life, for my children and my grandchildren. They're going to have to give me my money. I mean, when you sit back and think Bruno Mars, Dr. Dre, when you think about all these people that have sampled music, if they're filthy rich on it, what's our problem? But everybody that works hard for over 50 years should be able to retire in peace, should be able to sit back without looking for your money. And if I never get it, at least you heard it from me, because I don't know what they might do to keep from paying me all the money they owe me. Get in this industry, there are so many twists and turns. And even though you have the Almighty God with you, they still gonna try you. Because just because I believe in God don't mean they believe in God. They don't believe in God. I'm telling on Universal and all the people that y'all work with me, y'all know who you are. You've been spotted. You've been seen. Your worth is useless to me now because I've seen the data. And I hope to God you enjoyed spending every dime you took, because you're going to give it back one of these days. That's all I'm going to say.
Something about Angie Stone's passing just doesn't sit right. At least, not if you ask Jaguar Wright. Because according to her, Angie's death wasn't a tragic accident. It was a message. A warning to anyone brave enough to challenge the powerful figures who've been quietly pulling strings in the music industry for decades. And here's where things get chilling. Just weeks before her untimely crash, Angie was openly accusing her record label of stealing millions in royalties and promising to expose every name involved. Then suddenly, she's gone. Now, Jaguar Wright is breaking her silence, claiming Angie was silenced before she could take her fight public. And the deeper you look, the harder it is to dismiss how eerily her story mirrors other artists who try to fight back against the machine. So what really happened to Angie Stone? Let's rewind, because the road leading up to her death was paved with betrayal, theft, and secrets the industry never wanted you to hear. Something about Angie Stone's death doesn't add up. At least, not if you believe what Jaguar Wright just revealed. Because according to Jaguar, Angie's passing wasn't just a tragic accident. It was a message. A carefully crafted warning to anyone in the industry daring enough to speak up about what really goes on behind closed doors. And when you start connecting the dots, the timing, the silence, the strange details that don't quite fit, it starts to look less like coincidence and more like a cover-up. Jaguar claims Angie didn't just lose control of her car that night. She lost her life for a reason. For speaking truths that powerful people wanted buried. Just weeks before her crash, Angie went online and did something few artists ever have the courage to do. She called out the industry giants who had been robbing her blind for years. She said she was done being quiet, done being the strong black woman expected to take the hits and smile through the pain. She was ready to fight back, to name names, to take legal action, and to expose how the very system she helped build had turned against her. And then suddenly, she's gone. One crash, one life taken, one case quickly ruled accidental. The headlines moved on, but the fans didn't. Because the math just wasn't mathing. Angie had survived decades in this industry, through heartbreak, betrayal, and exploitation, only to die right when she was preparing to expose everything. It doesn't feel random. It feels timed. Jaguar Wright, who has made a name for herself revealing industry secrets most people are too scared to touch, is now pointing fingers. She's saying what many fans have been whispering since the news broke, that Angie's death fits into a dark pattern. A pattern where artists who speak up, who demand what's rightfully theirs, who refuse to play by the unspoken rules, mysteriously don't make it to see justice served. And most unsettling part? Jaguar claims this wasn't just an accident. It was a warning. A message to every artist thinking about biting the hand that feeds them. A reminder that in the music industry, silence isn't golden, it's survival. By the end of this story, you'll see why fans aren't buying the accident narrative and why some people believe Angie Stone's final fight for her royalties might have cost her far more than money. Before the industry stripped her down to headlines and lawsuits, Angie Stone was a woman molded by faith, soul, and struggle. Her voice wasn't just beautiful, it was healing. The kind of voice that carried the weight of generations. Born from Sunday mornings in a small South Carolina church where gospel harmonies filled the air like incense. Her father sang in a gospel quartet, and little Angie would watch in awe as the music transformed ordinary people into believers. That's where she learned that music wasn't about fame. It was about truth. From the start, Angie was chasing something purer than celebrity. She carried that gospel fire in every note she sang, every lyric she wrote. And it showed when she became one of the first women to ever break into hip-hop with her group The Sequence. Angie wasn't just making history, she was rewriting it. The group's hit, Funk You Up, wasn't just a song. It was a cultural shift. It would later be sampled by Dr. Dre, echoed in Uptown Funk, and shaped the sound of an entire generation. But here's the thing, Angie never got the credit. Even as she helped pioneer the sound that would define hip-hop, the industry was already learning how to take from her. Angie gave her heart to music, and in return, music gave her heartbreak. She was a bridge between gospel and soul, between hip-hop and R&B. Yet somehow, she was always written out of the story she helped create. She didn't just sing about pain, she lived it. As Angie's voice matured, so did her sound. She evolved into one of the godmothers of neo-soul, standing shoulder to shoulder with Erykah Badu, Jill Scott, and D'Angelo. But even there, in a movement built on authenticity and emotion, Angie was the unsung architect. Behind D'Angelo's smoky vocals and timeless hits like Brown Sugar and Voodoo was Angie's pen, Angie's vision, Angie's soul. She helped shape his sound, but while he ascended to legend status, she was left in the shadows. And that became a pattern, a haunting, recurring theme in her story. When Jill Scott's team allegedly studied Angie's image and stage presence, it wasn't flattery. It was strategy. When Mary J. Blige released Paradise, it wasn't just a song. It was Angie's work stripped of her name. Time and time again, the industry used her voice, her ideas, her blueprint, but erased her. It was theft disguised as inspiration. Exploitation wrapped in collaboration. Angie wasn't just fighting for recognition. She was fighting to exist in an industry that constantly took from her while pretending she didn't matter. She missed out on major acting roles, lost opportunities that were practically handed to her rivals, and watched the empire she helped build shut her out of its gates. Yet through all of that, she kept showing up, working, performing, creating, because music was all she had left. But after decades of loyalty, Angie reached her breaking point. In her final months, she stopped smiling through the exploitation and started talking. On social media, in interviews, she laid it all bare, the stolen royalties, the unpaid publishing, the missing checks. She named Universal Music directly. Her words weren't angry, they were tired. The exhaustion of a woman who had spent 40 years giving everything, only to realize the people she trusted had taken it all. In her own words, Universal Music has been receiving all my royalties, all my mechanicals. They've taken pretty much everything. I won't say stolen, but they have taken all the monies due to me. She spoke about how her lawyers and managers had failed her, how songs she wrote were never properly registered, how people she trusted changed lanes behind her back because they knew she wasn't a lawyer. She admitted she had spent her whole life working, traveling, providing for her children as a single mother. And yet, after 40 years in the game, she couldn't retire because the money was gone. If you only knew how much they've taken from me, she said. I should have been able to retire 20 years ago. But the people driving the ship, They were too busy taking care of themselves. She even invoked Oprah's famous line, "Do your own research." Angie had learned the hard way that trusting the system meant giving the wolves your wallet. But what she didn't realize was that this time, calling them out might have put a target on her back. Because after that video, Angie wasn't just fighting for royalties, she was fighting for justice. She was gearing up to take Universal to court. And that's when everything changed. Days after publicly declaring war on one of the most powerful companies in the music world, Angie Stone was gone. A car crash, they said. An unfortunate accident. But here's the thing. Angie wasn't just any passenger on the road that day. She was the only one who didn't make it out alive. No mechanical failures. No detailed police reports released to the public. Just silence. A clean, quiet silence that spread faster than the news of her death itself. Fans were left stunned, but not convinced. Because how is it that a woman who spent decades surviving an industry that devours its own dies right after threatening to expose the people who profited off her pain? The math isn't mathing. The timeline feels too neat. The statement's too rehearsed. And when Jaguar Wright came forward to connect the dots, suddenly, it all started to look like more than just tragedy. It looked like a pattern. Angie Stone didn't just leave behind a legacy. She left behind questions, the kind that the industry doesn't want asked. And as her story continues to unfold, one thing is becoming painfully clear. When artists start fighting for what's theirs, the industry finds a way to quiet them, one way or another. When Jaguar Wright stepped forward, she didn't mince her words. She said what everyone else was too scared to say out loud. That Angie Stone didn't just die, she was erased. According to Jaguar, Angie's passing was part of a cycle, a blueprint the industry has followed for decades to keep its power intact. In Jaguar's words, they want their pound of flesh. It doesn't matter how hard you work, that's not your money. That's their money. And when you start fighting for it, that's when they come for you. And she didn't stop there. Jaguar connected Angie's death to a chilling pattern she's been tracking for years. Artists who challenge the machine, demand their royalties, or speak out about the corruption suddenly meet untimely, mysterious ends. She brought up Aaron Carter, who died after openly accusing the industry of robbing him blind and refusing to stay silent about what he called the darkness in Hollywood. She mentioned LB, sure, who fell into a sudden coma, right, after warning people that something sinister was going on behind the scenes. Jaguar said, "You think this is new? You think Angie's story is one of a kind? No, this is what they do. They've been robbing us for decades, feeding off our pain, off our art, off our souls." Her voice cracked with emotion when she said it, because she wasn't just talking about Angie. She was talking about herself, and every artist who ever dared to bite the hand that feeds them. She warned that this machine doesn't just want your music, it wants your silence. It wants your obedience. It thrives on your suffering, because as long as you're desperate, as long as you're broken, you'll keep feeding it. And when someone like Angie finally says, enough, the system reacts. It tightens its grip. It reminds everyone watching that no one, not even a legend, is untouchable. Jaguar's revelation wasn't just gossip, it was a declaration. A wake-up call. She said Angie was silenced because she was about to expose how deep the money trail really went, and that this wasn't just about one artist or one label. It was about the entire machine, a machine that's been running off the blood, sweat, and souls of its creators since the very beginning. And when you step back and look at the bigger picture, the pattern is impossible to ignore. How many artists have died right when they were about to reclaim their masters, file a lawsuit, or reveal industry secrets? From Prince to Michael Jackson, from Aaron Carter to Lisa Left Eye Lopez, it's always the same story. They fight for ownership, they speak the truth, they start gaining power, and then, suddenly, tragedy strikes. These aren't just random coincidences. These are patterns. The same industry that profits from your pain also decides when your story ends. Angie Stone's crash fits the same blueprint. A moment of rebellion followed by sudden silence. A legal threat followed by a tragic accident. A powerful voice cut off right before it could make real change. And what's worse, every time it happens, the same thing follows. media silence, unanswered questions, and a flood of PR statements meant to calm the storm. The pattern isn't just in the deaths. It's in the way the aftermath is handled. Quick, quiet, clean. Like they're wiping the slate before anyone can start connecting the dots. Maybe it really was a tragic accident. Maybe it was just bad timing. But if you've been paying attention to how this industry treats truth tellers, it's hard not to wonder. Because the people who expose the truth rarely get to live long enough to see it set them free. Angie Stone was ready to fight back, to reclaim what was hers, to make sure her story wasn't rewritten by the same people who had erased her for decades. But in the end, her silence became their victory. Still, something about this story refuses to die. Her words live on in the video she left behind, in the unfinished fight she was gearing up for, in the growing chorus of fans demanding to know the truth. Because deep down, everyone can feel it. This wasn't just another accident. It was a message. A message to every artist who dares to speak up. A message to every fan who dares to ask questions. And a message to every powerful name who thought the truth could be buried with Angie Stone. Maybe the industry thinks it's won again. But the thing about silence is, it doesn't last forever. So what do you think? Was Angie's death really just a coincidence? Or another chapter in the industry's long history of silencing the ones who refuse to play by its rules? How many more Angies will it take before the truth finally comes out?